If people think that I'm gay, they already misjudged. I'm the straightest man in the world.
That's Young Thug clapping back at fans questioning his sexuality. But from rocking dresses on mixtape covers to calling Rich Homie Quan his hubby, Thugger has fueled endless debate and kept the hip-hop world guessing about who he really is. Here are some of the moments. Gender-fluid fashion and style choices. If we're talking about the origins of Young Thug's gay rumors, we've got to start with his fashion. Because for over a decade, Thug hasn't just dressed differently from other rappers, he's built his whole image around breaking gender rules in hip-hop. Back in the early 2010s, when Atlanta's trap scene was defined by baggy jeans, oversized tees, and diamond chains heavy enough to snap your neck, Thugger showed up wearing skin-tight pants, women's tops, painted nails, and colorful accessories. It wasn't just a small tweak, it was the polar opposite of what rappers were supposed to wear.
Is you the first that wore skinny jeans?
100%.
What made you wear it?
I just always felt like baggy like I would just be like, damn, I don't feel right when I have on baggy pants. It just feel like I'm naked. Like it feel like I'm loose.
And it wasn't random either. Thug's style was deliberate. He saw clothes as tools of expression, not markers of gender. In fact, he once explained, when it comes to swag, there's no gender involved. That philosophy exploded into mainstream conversation in 2016 when Thug released his Jeffrey mixtape. The cover art became an instant cultural moment. Thug stood tall in a flowing periwinkle blue Japanese-inspired ruffled dress designed by Alessandro Trinconi with a wide-brimmed parasol hat covering half his face. The imagery was striking, stylish, and cinematic, but for hip-hop, it was straight-up chaos. The internet had a field day. Memes, jokes, and accusations of him being gay flooded X, then Twitter. Some praised him for the boldness, others clowned him relentlessly, and old-school rappers couldn't resist chiming in either. Even OGs like Oskino Vasquez questioned the choice, saying,
"If a man wear a dress, and then would you be surprised if he say he mess with men? I mean, I don't think that's a thing to be surprised about."
But here's the twist. Thug didn't back down. In fact, he leaned harder into it. In a Billboard interview, he clapped back at critics saying, "You could be a gangster with a dress." That one line flipped the script. Thug wasn't just wearing dresses for shock value. He was actively challenging the definition of masculinity in rap. Could you be a hardened street rapper and still wear a dress? According to Thug, yes. And this wasn't a one-time stunt. He continued mixing high fashion with gender-fluid expression. He rocked leopard print skirts, silk blouses, lace tops, and even fronted a Calvin Klein campaign in women's clothing declaring, "I feel." Like there's no such thing as gender. And that's the key. Artists like Prince, David Bowie, and Andre 3000 blurred gender norms in music before Thug ever did. But in hip-hop, a genre with a long history of homophobia, Thug's fashion hit differently. It wasn't just rebellion, it was a revolution. But it also came with a cost. Every time Thug wore nail polish or a dress, the speculation about his sexuality got louder. Instead of being praised as an innovator, he was often reduced to a meme, the gay rapper who wears dresses. Yet in true Thugger fashion, he never seemed to care. His Instagram post showed him proudly posing in outfits that sparked debates. He laughed off the backlash, and he even admitted that sometimes he enjoyed messing with people who didn't get it. And if the outfits raised eyebrows, the leaked phone calls took things to a whole new level. The Stretcher jail call. When you're locked up, especially in a high-profile case like Young Thug's RICO indictment, every word you say can come back to haunt you. And in September 2025, one leaked jail call turned into the most viral sus moment of Thugger's entire career, the infamous Stretcher conversation. Here's how it went down. A clip surfaced online from one of Thug's recorded calls inside Fulton County Jail, where he had been locked up since May 2022. In the audio, another inmate could be heard saying to Thug, "Hey Thug, that boy Stretcher said he ready for round 2. Now on the surface, that might just sound like regular jailhouse banter, maybe even a reference to a fight or some kind of rematch. But in actual sense, the word stretcher was a sexual innuendo, a nickname for another inmate who had supposedly hooked up with Thug. That was it. Social media went into overdrive. Memes exploded across X. TikTok edits popped up with titles like "Young Thug getting stretched in jail." Reddit threads broke down the slang, with users debating whether stretcher was prison code for sex or just a goofy nickname. To make things even more confusing, the same caller followed up by saying, "He's not talking about a round 2. You need straight comedian, man." That one little word, straight, made fans lose their minds even more. Was it a joke, a slip, a dig at Thug's sexuality? Nobody knew. And here's where context matters. Jail culture is full of wild talk. Inmates clown each other constantly, especially when they're bored, stressed, or trying to pass the time. So, some fans argued the call was nothing more than trolling, just guys in jail talking reckless. But perception is reality, and Thug's history of gay-coded moments made it easy for people to believe there was more to it. The timing didn't help either. Thug already had years of speculation stacked against him, so though, the stretcher call didn't feel like a one-off. To many fans, it felt like the latest piece of evidence in a long-running case against him. The backlash was so loud that Thug himself had to address it. On September 7th, 2025, he jumped on X to post a public apology, writing, "To everyone involved in this situation, I'm sorry this is happening, and I hope you guys can forgive me. I'm moving forward with my life. Thank you, God." Later, in an interview on Perspectives with Bank, he explained that being locked down 23 hours a day was making him mentally unstable, and that some of the conversations weren't meant to be taken seriously. In other words, don't overthink it. It was just jail talk. But of course, once the clip was out there, it was too late. Fans had already turned it into one of the most infamous gay rumors in hip-hop history. To this day, people still comment "Stretcher Round 2" under random Young Thug posts, keeping the meme alive. So was the stretcher call proof of anything? One throwaway joke in jail became a worldwide headline. And that's the price you pay when you've built your brand on mystery, controversy, and bending the rules of masculinity. But long before the world heard those calls, Thug had already dropped one unforgettable quote about his time in juvie. Juvenile detention quote. To really understand how the Young Thug gay rumors snowballed, you've got to rewind back before the fame. Because one of the earliest seeds of speculation came straight out of Thug's own mouth when he talked about his time in juvenile detention. Thug grew up in the Jonesboro South Projects of Atlanta, one of 11 kids in a family surrounded by violence and poverty. He wasn't just a product of his environment, he was right in the middle of it. By the time he was 12, he had already been expelled from school after breaking a teacher's arm during a fight. That landed him 4 years in a Georgia juvenile detention center. Now, when most rappers talk about juvie, they frame it as a wake-up call, a dark period, or a place that hardened them, but not Thug. In a 2014 Rolling Stone profile, when asked what he did during those years, his response was jaw-dropping. "All I did was fuck, smoke, and gamble." And just like that, the internet had questions. Because here's the thing, juvenile detention centers in Georgia are not co-ed. They separate boys and girls. So if Thug was locked up in a boys' facility, which he was, then who exactly was he? Fans did the math. Reddit threads popped up immediately, with users asking bluntly, so was he smashing dudes in juvie or what? And that speculation never really went away. Every time a new rumor about Thug's sexuality popped up, people would circle back to this quote as proof that he had already exposed himself years earlier. Now, to be fair, there's another way to read it. Some fans argued Thug was exaggerating, just flexing in a wild, off-the-cuff way, like he wasn't being literal. He was just trying to sound untouchable. After all, Thug has always been a troll. He loves saying outrageous things just to get a reaction. So maybe this was just his way of shocking the interviewer. But even that explanation didn't stop the speculation, because when you put this quote side by side with his eccentric style and trolling behavior, it seemed to fit too perfectly. It was like another puzzle piece in the Young Thug is gay narrative. And here's the kicker. Thug never clarified. He didn't walk it back, didn't try to correct people, didn't care about the noise. He just let it sit out there, part of his larger-than-life, unpredictable persona. To some fans, that silence made it even more suspicious, because if it was just a joke, why not say so? Why not clear the air? But for Thug, mystery was always part of the brand. The more people speculated, the more attention he got. So whether it was a literal confession, a reckless exaggeration, or just trolling, that one Rolling Stone quote has haunted Thug ever since. And as soon as his career began to take off, that old quote became fuel for even more rumors. Early career rumors and LGBTQ+ associations. By the early 2010s, Young Thug was carving his way into Atlanta's underground scene with a sound that was as chaotic as it was captivating. His I Came From Nothing mixtape series, 2011-2012, made him a local name, blending street grit with an eccentric delivery that didn't sound like anybody else. But it wasn't just the music that had people talking. It was how he looked and acted. Even in those early days, Thug wasn't afraid to push boundaries, while his peers in Atlanta were. Sticking to the uniform, oversized tees, baggy jeans, and chains, Thug showed up in tight jeans, brightly colored shirts, painted nails, and leopard print tops. He looked more like a fashion model than a trap rapper, and it shook people. And his voice? That was another lightning rod. His squeaky ad-libs, stretched out flows, and sometimes effeminate tones made him stand out, but also made him a target. Hip-hop forums like Boxton, Section 80, and Reddit lit up with posts calling him gay or sus. In one 2014 Section 80 thread, the entire debate was literally titled, "Are you fine with your fav rapper being gay?" And the example used was Young Thug. The industry started to notice too. When Gucci Mane signed him to 1017 Brick Squad in 2013, blogs weren't just covering the music. They were dissecting his Instagram pictures, his outfits, and his captions. Some fans saw him as a refreshing disruptor, breaking away from Atlanta's tough guy mold. Others straight up dismissed him as weird or soft. But here's what made Thug different. He leaned into the speculation. Instead of trying to dress more masculine to silence the rumors, he doubled down. On Instagram, he'd casually drop captions that fueled the fire. He'd call his male friends BAE or lover. He'd pose in clothes that blurred gender lines and then post it proudly, knowing people would screenshot and argue. By the time 1017 Thug dropped in 2013, his music was undeniable. Tracks like Picacho and some more became underground hits, and Atlanta started buzzing with his potential. But the conversations around his sexuality were getting just as loud as the ones about his artistry, and Thug seemed to enjoy the chaos. In interviews, when asked about his style or the rumors, he'd give cryptic, dismissive answers. In one discussion about why he wore what he wore, he shrugged it off, saying, "In my world, of course, it don't matter." That kind of response didn't kill the speculation, it fed it. And then came the comparisons. Fans and journalists alike started connecting him to past icons who had blurred gender lines in music. Prince, David Bowie, Andre 3000. But here's the difference. Rock and funk had long histories of flamboyance, while hip-hop had always prided itself on hypermasculinity. So when Thug showed up in skin-tight jeans and painted nails, people weren't sure if he was innovating or confessing something. And that's the thing about Thug's early career. The speculation didn't just follow him, it became part of his brand. People weren't just listening to the music, they were watching him like a reality show, waiting for the next sus post, outfit, or quote. For some fans, it made him a hero, a fearless innovator who didn't care what anyone thought. For others, it made him a clown, someone they couldn't take seriously. But either way, it made him unforgettable. So while other rappers were trying to prove how street they were, Thug was proving he could dominate the culture by making people question everything about him. But nothing blew the conversation up quite like the way he talked about Rich Homie Quan. The Rich Homie Quan hubby story. If you ask most fans where the Young Thug gay rumors hit mainstream status, a lot of them will point straight to 2014, the year of Rich Gang and the infamous Hubby saga. Now, for context, in 2014, Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan were inseparable. They had teamed up with Birdman to form Rich Gang and dropped Lifestyle, one of the biggest records of the decade. That song wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural reset. Suddenly, everyone was rapping in squeaky voices, stretching syllables, and copying Thug's flow. But outside the booth, the chemistry between Thug and Quan was just as noticeable. They were always side by side, from the studio to the stage. Fans loved seeing them together, but Thug had a way of pushing it further. On Instagram, he started publicly referring to Rich Homie Quan as his hubby. Yeah, hubby. Not slime, not twin, not bro. Hubby. And of course, the internet went nuclear. Screenshots of the captions flew around social media. Memes exploded. Some fans joked that Quan and Thug were secretly married. Others got uncomfortable, asking if Thug was outing himself by calling another man hubby. In a culture where rappers rarely even say "I love you" to their male friends, this was unheard of. Even other rappers chimed in. Some laughed, some shook their heads, and critics used it as more ammo to call Thug sus, especially after the Jeffrey dress and the Rolling Stone Juvie quote. Eventually, Rich Homie Quan had no choice but to address it publicly. In an interview, when pressed about why Thug was calling him hubby, he brushed it off, explaining,
"Young Thug calls you hubby on Instagram."
You say Young Thug called me hubby on Instagram.
Explain what that means, man, because you know people gonna jump to their conclusion.
Quan laughed it off and said it was just a figure of speech.
Anybody who knows me or knows Quan, or knows Jeff, or knows Thug, knows like you wouldn't say it in their one-eye faces. Point blank period. You know what I mean? Like it's just a figure of speech, man.
But he also admitted something interesting.
I feel that Young Thug is media on purpose.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Like,
Thug, he's
say
different.
some shit like that, and we all gonna talk about it.
Yeah,
it's
he's
working.
different.
And honestly, that's the perfect way to describe it. Because here's the truth. Thug knew exactly what he was doing. He knew calling Quan his hubby would set the internet on fire. He knew people would screenshot it, gossip blogs would run with it, and fans would endlessly debate whether it was a joke or real. He thrived off that energy. In hip-hop, where image is everything, Thug flipped the script. Instead of trying to silence rumors about his sexuality, he fueled them. Instead of backing away, he leaned into the controversy and owned it, and in doing so, he made himself unforgettable. Even today, the hubby moment lives on in memes. Search Young Thug hubby on Reddit or X, and you'll still see people debating it like it just happened yesterday. To some, it was Thug exposing his true self. To others, it was peak trolling, a masterclass in controlling the narrative by creating chaos. And just when people thought Thug couldn't stir the pot any further, he flipped the label onto other rappers. Young Thug calling other rappers gay. If you thought Young Thug calling Rich Homie Quan his hubby was wild, wait until you hear about the times when he flipped the script and started calling other rappers gay. Because if there's one thing Thug knows how to do, it's stir the pot. And this move kept his name buzzing like crazy. One of the biggest moments came when Thug jumped online and made a broad, reckless claim. All the rappers in Atlanta take mad dick. Not a specific person, not a subliminal, the entire Atlanta rap scene. That one sentence was enough to set the city on fire. Atlanta is home to dozens of stars. Future, Gucci, T.I., Migos, Lil Baby, you name it. For Thug to lump them all together under that claim, that was nuclear. And then he went even further, adding a warning shot about Cash Money's own Birdman. Thug posted something along the lines of, "Don't wear skinnies around baby unless you bout that life." Now, if you're not familiar with the subtext, let me break it down. Birdman, aka Baby, has long been surrounded by whispers and rumors himself, especially after that infamous photo of him kissing Lil Wayne on the lips went viral years earlier. Fans already clowned him for that. So when Thug implied that wearing skinny jeans around baby could put you in a compromising situation, yeah, the internet lost it. This move was classic Thug. On the one hand, it fed into his image as the ultimate troll. On the other, it blurred the lines between joking and exposing. Was he just clowning around, or was he hinting at something real? Fans couldn't decide. And here's where things get interesting. In hip-hop, being called broke, fake, or a snitch has always been considered damaging. But being called gay, for years that was treated as the ultimate insult. Entire beefs have been sparked over less. So for Thug to casually throw that word around like it was nothing, that was a game changer. It also showed how comfortable he was playing with the culture's taboos. While other rappers avoided even being associated with gay in fear of losing credibility, Thug weaponized it. He embraced it when people called him gay, and he flipped it back when he wanted to stir chaos. Of course, the reactions were split. Some fans loved it. They saw Thug as the guy who wasn't afraid to say what everyone else was thinking. Others thought he was reckless, playing too loosely with people's reputations. But one thing's for sure, it kept the spotlight on him. Every time he made one of these wild claims, the internet lit up. Memes, debates, think pieces, they all followed, and Thug knew it. At the end of the day, calling other rappers gay wasn't about outing anyone, it was about control. But eventually, all that trolling and speculation forced Thug to defend himself directly. Young Thug defending his sexuality. For all the trolling, the dresses, and the eyebrow-raising comments, Young Thug has never shied away from defending himself when the rumors go too far. And when he does, he makes it loud, clear, and blunt. One of the most famous examples is a short clip that went viral online. In it, Thug doesn't play coy, doesn't troll, doesn't smirk. He looks dead serious as he says,
"If people think that I'm gay, they already misjudged. I'm the straightest man in the world."
That one clip shut down a lot of chatter, at least temporarily. It showed the side of Thug that was genuinely tired of the endless speculation. For years, people had clowned him for wearing dresses, for calling Quan hubby, for his Rolling Stone juvie quote. And now, with the internet twisting his jail calls into jokes, he had clearly had enough. But that wasn't the only time he fired back. In another moment, this one during a live stream, a fan tried to call him gay in the comments. Without hesitation, Thug barked back,
"Trash. You heard I was gay. You going crazy." Stupid.
It was raw, unfiltered, and very much the way someone from Thug's world would react if you challenged their sexuality. And it left no room for interpretation. In his words, he wasn't gay. Another important moment came when he talked about fashion directly, instead of tiptoeing. Around why he wore women's clothes, he reframed the entire conversation.
Hip-hop dress code. Hip-hop don't got a dress.
That's a powerful line. What he was really saying is, just because I dress differently doesn't mean I'm anything other than who I say I am. For Thug, fashion was self-expression, not a confession, and he wanted the culture to catch up. Now, some fans respected this. They saw him as a boundary breaker who was misunderstood, someone who was more interested in art than improving his masculinity. Others weren't convinced. To them, the denials only made him look more defensive, which in their eyes was suspicious. But here's the thing, Thug has always walked a fine line. On one hand, he loved trolling the culture and blurring the lines. On the other, he wanted people to respect him as a man. It was like he wanted the best of both worlds, the attention that came with controversy, and the respect that came with setting the record straight. And then came the leaked jail calls in 2025, which pushed things to a breaking point. So what's the takeaway? At the end of the day, Young Thug has always been clear about one thing. In his own words, he's straight. He might troll, he might bend the rules, he might push fashion boundaries. But when it comes down to it, he's adamant that people are misjudging him. And whether you believe him or not depends less on his words and more on how you interpret everything else he does. And while some denials were fiery, other calls showed a different side, one focused on loyalty and betrayal. Jail Call with 21 Savage. Not every leaked call from Young Thug's time in Fulton County Jail went viral for being sus. Some of them got attention for another reason, because they pulled other rappers into the messy mix of his legal battles. And the most talked about of those were the conversations with 21 Savage. By 2022, the YSL RICO case had already shaken Atlanta. Thug, Gunna, and dozens of associates were behind bars, accused of running YSL as a violent criminal gang. The streets were buzzing with questions. Who would hold it down? and who would fold? That answer seemed to come in December 2022 when Gunna took an offered plea deal. The deal let him out of jail early, but it also required him to acknowledge that YSL was a gang. Even though he didn't directly testify against Thug, the optics were bad. Almost instantly, the internet branded him a snitch. This is where 21 Savage stepped in. In one leaked call, he spoke to Thug about Gunna's situation, pressing him on how to handle it. 21 didn't mince words. He told Thug straight up, "You gotta stand on loyalty, bro. If you don't stand on loyalty, all this fall apart." For Thug, it was a gut punch. Gunna wasn't just an artist on his label, he was like a little brother. They had collaborated on countless songs, shared success, and built YSL into a powerhouse. But now, with the streets branding Gunna as disloyal, Thug was stuck in a trap of perception. If he stood by Gunna, he risked looking weak, like he was tolerating disloyalty. But if he cut Gunna off, he'd lose one of his closest allies and one of the biggest moneymakers in his camp. The calls quickly leaked to the internet, and once again, fans turned them into public debate. Some argued Gunna hadn't actually snitched, that the offered plea was a legal move, not a betrayal. Others insisted that in street culture, even admitting YSL was a gang was crossing the line. Memes, think pieces, and endless arguments flooded X and Reddit. And once again, Thug was at the center of it all. Here's what makes this moment important in the gay rumors narrative. It showed how fragile Thug's image was. Some joked that Thug sounded more hurt about Gunna than about women. Others said he sounded like a heartbroken lover. It was trolling, yes, but it showed that once people label you as sus, everything you say gets filtered through that lens. But whether serious or not, the damage was done. Fans debated the calls endlessly. Other rappers chimed in, and Gunna's reputation took a hit he's still recovering from. Meanwhile, Thug had to manage the fallout, not just of his legal case, but of his private words becoming memes and headlines. In a way, these 21 Savage calls connect to the bigger theme of Thug's life. Once the public has a narrative about you, everything you do gets tied back to it. Even loyalty conversations about Gunna were turned into part of the sus narrative, whether fairly or not. And it proved once again that in Young Thug's world, nothing stays private for long. Thanks for watching. If you found this video exciting and unbelievable, be sure to check out other similar and amazing videos on the screen. I'll see you in the next video.